Hello and welcome to another mod showcase. Today I'm bringing you a subscriber request, so remember to sub to have a video like this made for you. I was asked to have a look at CleverCharffs all-in-one, and luckily enough I'd just finished my last order, so the timing was absolutely perfect. The CleverCharff texture packages have actually been out for a while now, but they used to take up the best part of 2GB and 2 mod slots. The new all-in-one has managed to cut this down to 957 megabytes. Ballin has achieved this by lowering the original resolution, but don't let that make you think the quality has dropped. It's the same quality, but now with improved performance and viability. The all-in-one, as I'm sure you've already guessed, includes everything CleverCharff has done. The cities, the farmhouses, dungeons, mountains, the castles, and a few miscellaneous items like lockpicks and smelters too. I'm going to be showing off a selection of what's available here, so check the progress bar for timestamps to see the relevant things for yourself. I'm going to start with Whiterun. Overall, I like the textures here for the most part. The only flaw is the floor. Where the grass blending has been done is way too rigid and leaves straight lines everywhere. What I've done is overwrite this with SSG's Whiterun stone floor, which blends in so nicely, removing the grass problem almost entirely. These floors cost an additional 10 megabytes, but it's really worthwhile in my opinion. This is the only change I've made here because everything else is of really high standard. The buildings, Dragon Reach, literally everything here looks beautiful. It looks like the people of Whiterun have actually looked after their town, which thematically actually works for me. Moving on, we're going to be taking a look at Solitude. Some amazing work has been done here. I found each and every texture to be amongst the best available, but for overall cheaper when you consider the rest of what's on offer in this pack. The moss on the walls and the grass through the floor have been perfectly implemented. The detailing on the buildings look fantastic. There are really nice subtle colours on buildings and natural colour from the flora. There's really not much to say here because of how well it's been done. The same can be said of Riften, where the wood looks somewhat naturally aged in an area heavy with salt air. I feel like the author has really thought about the environment here. I'm really impressed with the buildings too. Riften has always been one of my favourite locations. It's deep in quests, characters, and has a brilliant design. But all of this usually comes at a price. Horrible frame rates. I'm really happy to announce that this wasn't an issue for me. The original CleverCharff packages suffered from off-putting frame loss in Riften, but this is a thing of the past. These new resolutions have alleviated this problem and given me some of the smoothest frames I've ever had here, without sacrificing how pretty this place is. And now I'm going to move on to Windhelm. Here I wasn't too keen on the overall aesthetic. It was a little bit too plastic, and because of all the straight lines without any 3D meshes, the textures didn't quite sit right. However, I did find an answer to this. I decided to overwrite most of the set with authentic Windhelm. This works as a really nice set because you get the best side of CleverCharff's textures in the doors, the walls of kings and the smaller details, with the bulk of the heavy lifting being done by authentic Windhelm. I don't want to be unfair to CleverCharff here. The textures are actually really good, but the problem comes down to meshes they're built upon. From every angle you'll see the same lines as vanilla. If there's ever a mesh fix that adds some extra dimensions to the brickwork here, we could be in for a real treat. However, until such a time I will be using this workaround. Up last for the cities is Markarth. This is another really well done job. The only issue I've seen here is the contrast between the buildings and the mountains, as CleverCharff has lightened the buildings but darkened the mountains. It's not a deal breaker, but it does look a little jarring at first. This is mostly only noticeable from the outside though. Markarth looks particularly good in this pack as the textures blend so well inside the city, as this pack deals with the Dwemer ruins too. This basically means that things like the walls, floors, doors and general clutter all suit each other perfectly, being designed by the same person and palette. I'm really impressed by the work here. I do think this could be improved further by a lighter mounting texture like Majestic Mountains Lightside, which would take the blending to a whole other level, but that would cost a fair bit extra, so would come down to personal preference. Up next I'm going to check out some farmhouses. For me this is the cream of the crop, the best feature of this pack. I actually used this in my last playthrough as the singular file. The stone and wood textures are really nicely detailed, but it's inside where it really shines. The stone floors are absolutely fantastic. These by the way are also available on their own too. The only missing feature are the fences, which are usually included in any static mesh mod. However, I'm using 3D log farmhouse fences for 3.7 megabytes, and they blend in really nicely with these farmhouses. And now the mountains. These are pretty good and actually match the LOD really well. I'm extraordinarily picky with mountains though, and do find they suffer from mesh problems with very flat edges in a lot of places. The textures however are fantastic and have accurate detailing, which would really benefit from a mesh change to bring out the best in them. The other issue here though is that the higher up in the snow-covered mountains you'll find one of my biggest pet peeves. The snow looks like it's white paint slapped on a flat edge and it really stands out. This is one of those things that very few mountain textures ever get right, and usually only notice when you go on a strange route, so for most people this isn't something you'll see very much. I'll probably be looking to cover this, however for most normal people this isn't going to be an issue. And finally, I'm going to be talking about the dungeons. There are obviously tons of variations of dungeons, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to be going to a Nordic ruin, as we've seen the Dwemer, or at least the rough outline of one in Markarth. I find the dungeons to be nicely detailed, but somewhat flatter in textures in some places. I'm coming from noble dungeons, which have some really nice detailing, and lots of mesh changes, so anything less than this can be somewhat noticeable to me. There are lots of excellent dungeon mods out there, and I would count this amongst them, but this wins out due to the depth of coverage. It includes nearly all aspects of the dungeon, all the way down to the word walls, which is only matched by organic Skyrim dungeons. But again, when you're dealing with cost comparison, this one is far more friendly. But on this, I am going to end. I know this is a little longer than I usually make my videos, but that just speaks to the depth of this mod. Hopefully I've shown enough to give people a good grasp of what's on offer here. If this has been helpful, I would really appreciate those likes, comments, and of course subscriptions, as we're getting so close to 2,000 subs now. I'd also love to see you over on the ever-growing Discord as well. I'll leave a link to that and everything else mentioned in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.